So you want to start by weighing your empties. You want to get a baseline to see how much you saved. So all the empties are 6.7 ounces. Jot it down because you think you'll remember it, but there's going to be a lot of numbers and you don't want to forget because it defeats the purpose. So the empties are at 6.7 ounces, and then you weigh your full one, which is at 2.9 ounces. And then start with your first one. Some of these slide out easier than others, but usually there's a cartridge in there that'll pop out. Let's start with the screwdriver. Let's see if we can pop this off. There we go. Now in this one, most of the clippings fell down into this catch basin, so a lot of times this will be filled with stuff, but you can scrape out what's left here, but thankfully there's this thing here that catches everything that falls. So we'll just take this one is relatively full, you crank it down and then just transfer the stuff in there. So actually I'm going to grab a plate, be easier than this towel. I was watching this show on History Channel a couple weeks ago, and it was historical truth or whatever, documentary or whatever you call it. But back in the 1500s, they used to have these people that would go around. They're kind of the equivalent of meter readers. I don't know if you're familiar with them, like your electric service and your gas service and water all have people that go around, and there's a meter on the outside of the house that dials on it, and every month they'll walk by and read the meter and see how much gas or electricity or water you used in the past month, and they will take that back in, plug it into their computers, and issue an invoice so they can tell exactly how much you used, and they'll bill you for it. So obviously there wasn't like electricity and things like that back in the 14 or 1500s, but I started in the show late, so I wasn't exactly sure what their role was, but it seemed like they're kind of the equivalent of meter readers. So they go around and I don't know if it was like heating wood or something like that. They would go around and see how much wood you had used in the past month, and maybe I don't know if the city like provided a certain amount of wood to people, and they go around and check to see how much they used. But there would be people that do that, and to encourage conservancy or whatever, they would for people who sort of used less wood every month, the meter reader would they had these bonus coins or whatever, and they would slip one of those coins into the wall, in the old walls in the old like English homes or whatever. There's gaps and stuff, and in between the studs and the outside of the wall, they just put a coin in there sort of as a reward for not using as much wood as your neighbor or whatever. And it turns out some of these homeowners back then didn't know about this program, so these coins would just build up in the walls for 100 years, and they had no idea about it, so they never pulled them out. And here they were finding I think the show was about 10 years ago. There was people doing some home remodels in this town outside of London where they had this practice, and like they pull off the plaster or whatever to put drywall up, and like all these coins would just like fall out of the walls, and there'd be like three or four, you know, they'd be filled up to the ceiling. There'd be like three or four studs. I don't know if they were back then, if they were 16-inch or 12-inch or whatever, but just the thickness of a wall filled with these gold coins, and there'd be hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of coins in there, and just sort of a windfall for these people. So they're interviewing these people about, and they're kind of wondering how many houses are there in this little town that are filled with these coins. So it was kind of interesting. And then makes you wonder. But I don't know how these people would go so long without knowing that they have these coins in the wall, but who knows. But they also had, they did this interview with Hillary Clinton. She didn't own one of those houses, but apparently she did something related. She had bought this, there, in Maine, there was like a husband and wife ran a antique shop, and they were getting old, didn't have any kids, kind of too old to run the shop anymore, so they're just pretty much liquidating everything they had. And one of the pieces they were selling was this family heirloom. It was this, clock from this 500-year-old clock or whatever, this big mantelpiece clock, probably this big. And it wasn't even part of their inventory. It was they were sort of selling everything they owned because they wanted to just scrape together enough to be able to retire. I think they're in their 80s, and they just needed enough to get by for a few more, for however much longer they had left. So they're selling this old clock. They wanted $600 for it, I think, something like that. It didn't work, but it was a solid, ornate, beautiful clock, and Hillary offered them $150, and they finally took it. So this clock, it didn't work. So Hillary apparently took it into a clock repair place or whatever, and they opened it up to get at the mechanism or whatever, and they found like 150 of those little gold coins that they were finding in these houses in this town outside of London. And apparently somebody had packed them in there, maybe when they came over to America or something like that. They wanted to stash some of those gold coins so that they wouldn't be carrying them on their person or get scared about getting robbed or something, and then forgot about it. Or maybe the person that put them there died on the passage, and no one knew that. I don't know if they would have died, though. They didn't really know why those coins were still in there. Maybe it's sort of a hoarding thing, or sort of the equivalent of hiding a bunch of coins in your mattress and dying and forgetting about it. But anyway, there's about 150 of those coins in there, and it turns out that Hillary was pretty proud of that. She said she spent 150 on the clock, and then there's probably around $100,000 worth of coins stashed in that clock. She said it's probably the best investment she ever made. I guess she said it was mixed in with like some cremated remains. It was the coins and some cremated remains in there together, but she said it was really easy to filter them out. But she was pretty excited about that. It was an interesting interview. So we got our pile. We got this cleaned out here. If you can see that. And we're just going to put it into our transplant recipient, kind of take it down a little, put it in there and just pack it in the best you can. And now for the moment of truth. How much did I save? So once again, we'll do the weigh-in. And how much did I lose during this transfer process? So you got all your empties. Just throw them on the scale. Come on. Make sure you put everything on there. Our empties come in at 6.4 ounces. We started at 6.7, if you may remember. I didn't, which is good. I wrote it down. Now let's see what see if we started at 2.9 on our full one, which should be 3.2 if we transferred everything. Now there's a little scraps fell and stuff, so 3.2. So we made 3 ounces. A standard stick of deodorant is 3.25 ounces. So there's how could that be almost a stick of deodorant that was just a little, but so if we saved 3 ounces, and so we basically saved, like this one's a 3 ounce, but anyway, I guess 3 ounces, a stick of deodorant is about $5, so if you go through 1 stick of deodorant a week, and you go through this practice every time you go through 4, basically every time once a month, you can save 1 stick of deodorant, or save $5 a month. It's worth a couple minutes of your time.